Dr. Ricketts, can you help me make it through?
Welcome in as we do each and every Wednesday. Dr. Mark Ricketts been on vacation like the rest of us as Wednesday has fallen on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. Good to see you, Doc. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys.
And as always, if you want to make Dr. Ricketts your primary physician, call 822-0233 or markrickettsmd.com. As always, the second segment will be taking your calls. We'll start lining that up at 741-9450. But it's cold out there, Doc.
Newsflash.
Yeah, newsflash. Captain Obvious here, but a lot of things to discuss and go over as it relates to cold weather and our health.
You bet. I mean, we're going to talk about winter safety tips today. We're going to go over some common things that you would not think about with winter weather that you really need to protect yourself with. You know, all of our friends in North Alabama as well as Central Alabama, just had a brutal week. But this is one of many that we will have over the next 2 months. First thing you always want to deal with when you're dealing with weather extremes like this is exposure. You know, when you're out in a survival, if you like Bear Grylls or you watch any survival programs, you always deal with exposure first, then dehydration, and then malnutrition after that. It's basically 4 hours in severe weather unprotected that you can actually go into shock with exposure. You know, temperatures like we had this week, particularly for the very young, the very old, and people that have illnesses, yeah, we've had over 21 deaths in the United States just strictly related to exposure issues from cold weather. So you got to be smart. We were talking about running before we came back from the break. A lot of folks, marathon seasons here, big races. I've got the Red Shoe Run coming up this weekend. You really need to be prepared. You need to dress for temperatures about 20 degrees warmer than what you're going to be running. But you've got to kind of layer up. And my favorite thing is to wear a trash bag. One of those big trash bags, just put it over you. It's great for holding in heat. If you're going to be on the street, if you're going to be outside, it's a great way to keep in heat. You've got to wear hand coverage. You've got to have decent socks and footwear. You've got to cover your head because most of the heat in your body you're going to lose from your hands, your feet, and your head. So those areas are essential to take care of.
One thing you talked about, and I caught myself last week before it got too cold to run outside dealing with this is and you realize it a few hours afterwards, and that's the dehydration factor. And because it's not 90 degrees and we're breathing in this thick air, you come in, your lungs, they don't necessarily hurt, but you can feel all that cold air. And you don't think about the water until, boom, about 3 hours later and you want to crash.
That's my second item.
Oh, I got you.
Dehydration.
Jumped ahead.
I stole his playbook. Stole the signals.
Stole the playbook here. We're doing the Gus Malzahn thing. I've been called his body double. But dehydration, then when it's cold, people just don't crave water. So they don't drink. Now, you're right with just the basic dehydration and people passing out things. But joint issues, your joints getting torn or messed up. People out snow skiing. Snow skiing season is here. You end up with a lot of orthopedic injuries, a lot of back injuries, kidney stones. All those kind of things are huge. So you got to consume water just like you would in the summer because of the imperceptible losses. And the way you have to think about that is you're pumping so much blood to these peripheral areas to try to keep them warm. It's just a basic animal instinct. You put a lot of heat and a lot of moisture through those areas. But you'll have people coming in. That's one reason you tend to get colds more. Your mucous membranes will dry out. GI problems, particularly constipation, can be a big problem this time of the year with that. Another one that we don't talk nearly enough about that we should, and really should have probably talked about last month, is carbon monoxide poisoning, particularly folks that have gas heat. It's the silent killer. It has no smell. It has no taste, but it can slip up on you in a heartbeat. You start in your car ahead of time for 30 minutes or so before you come out in this kind of weather. Carbon monoxide, if you have a faulty exhaust system in your car, and it can kill you in a matter of minutes. And what it does is basically this chemical carbon monoxide bonds to your hemoglobin or the proteins in your red cells and doesn't allow oxygen to bond on there. And you'll die of a heart attack, stroke, and of course you go unconscious. That's the whole thing. Well, I watch Bad Santa when he puts the hose pipe in the car.
Office Space, yeah.
In Office Space, that's what they're trying to do. Again, in this time of the year, too, the elderly, the very young, and people that have health conditions, you really got to keep tabs on these guys. A lot of older folks don't perceive temperature changes nearly as much, or they get cold a lot easier from medications and stuff they're on. So they'll actually dehydrate and go into kidney failure or go unconscious and get confused and have things happen to them or die from heart attacks. Medications, if you're on prescription medications, you really need to watch out for that. If you're on blood thinners, even an aspirin, that will tend to drop your body temperatures. A lot of high blood pressure medicines and other medications out there. So you need to talk to your doctor about that. Frostbite. Now, my classic story is there for all the guys in World War II that were in the Ardennes when my dad was there. Got trench foot. It never felt in the winter when it started to get cold, his feet would start to hurt. But frostbite can be a huge deal. We've got a lot of folks, UPS drivers, guys on construction and everything. Your hands can go numb and you can get permanent damage and actually lose digits from this time of the year. So you got to make certain you got proper hand gear, proper foot gear, and you got to keep moving and keeping blood going to those areas. The obvious, colds and flu. You know, we are all packed in together. You would think everybody going back to school, things would be better. Listen, man, the University of Alabama, Auburn University, UAB, they're the perfect culture dishes for all these infections, including the schools. I mean, you've got 3 in school, you know, and, well, one of these days you guys will have them in school.
One day.
But colds and flu are huge right now. We have influenza B that the flu shots are for, but there's a lot of influenza A. We have had a report, of course, I hate to bring it up, but I like this, you know it's my favorite disease, H1N1 flu from the lake.
Oh, yeah.
But it has been reported in South Alabama, and actually up in Michigan, they have one hospital alone at Ann Arbor's got 21 people in the ICU with H1N1 flu. So colds and flu right now, in my business, this is plowing season. We are busy treating these things, and we will probably until about Easter. Chest pain or having heart attacks. Probably one of the most common times of the year, besides when people start working in their yards in the spring, is right now. Body's under extreme amount of stress. You're dealing, a lot of folks first of the year, getting out of the holiday season, starting to exercise to get back in shape without going to see their doctor and getting checked out well first before they did that. Heart attacks, particularly fatal heart attacks, are so common. So if you're out on the trail running and you see somebody bent over something, don't just ignore them and wear your beats and pretend we're going into a stadium. Stop and check and make certain that person is okay. Asthma and people with emphysema, a big time of the year with all the dry air and the temperature changes and barometric pressure changes. It's huge. It's big in North Alabama. It's big in Central Alabama. You can just about draw a line from Gordo all the way up to Birmingport and through Pleasant Grove and Hueytown. It's like with a tornado hit. Those are all really, really bad. And the last thing that most of us don't think about are sports injuries. We got the Olympics coming up, but we got a lot of folks, that's the reason I don't ski, that are out snow skiing right now. And you'll have your number of doctors coming back in knee braces and apparatus and other people that are going to screw up their tendons in their knees, but also hunting accidents where people are out hunting right now and getting shot or falling out of tree stands. That seems to be my most common injuries, people falling out of a tree stand.
Now, Doc, you were talking about drastic temperature changing earlier, especially with the last few days we've seen that those below freezing, those frigid temperatures. For somebody that's, say, going in and out, like if you're in an office and then you go to the car, then you're outside, and then you're coming back in where it's warm, can that kind of drastic fluctuation, can that affect your body, or is there something you can do to kind of prevent that if that is going to hurt you?
Well, you can prepare for that, and that's one thing I didn't emphasize enough, but layering. Watch what your temperatures are so you can peel on and off layers of clothes. Usually some kind of dry fit or dry soft or whatever Under Armour's material is, like Nike's, is really good to wick moisture away from the body, kind of a nice pair of wind pants or a top on top of that, and then a heavy-duty coat. Don't just go with a coat or one single layer that's going to do it, but layer up 2 or 3 different layers to protect yourself while you're doing that.
You talked about the flu, and we all can sense the flu because you feel so bad. I personally know 2 or 3 people in the last week with everything that's going on that have had coughs and things like that, and they just kind of let it go thinking, and then they end up in the doctor's office and it's worse than it's pneumonia and it's bad. Yes. A couple times they've ended up in the hospital. And I bring that up, are there things, at what point do you view it as, it's just a seasonal change or fluctuation in temperature and I got a cough, to understand? Because by the time they're getting to the doctor, they're in a lot worse shape than they think they are.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's advantageous for me to say, come right now.
Right.
But really, I'm going to tell you, this time of the year, you don't try to ride this stuff out. You just need to go on and get in and get checked as soon as you start having things, usually within 24 to 48 hours. Because even with starting antibiotics, even with starting anti-flu medications, it takes 2 days for those medications to hit full force and to really do you good. And, let's face it, most everybody is out of vacation time. Right. They're out of sick leave time. They're out of everything right now. So, you're looking at losing work as everybody's trying to gear up at the first of the year. So My advice is take the time and go get seen about when symptoms start. Don't grab the bottle of NyQuil. Don't grab the Advil cold and sinus right off the bat. Go get seen. Because right now there are about 3 or 4 different things out there. Mycoplasma is big, and that seems to be what's causing the pneumonias.
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, and that's going around.
Good,
And that's a beast. You won't wear it out, but it's just enough to make you feel bad, but not enough to get you really sick. Influenza A and B, real simple, particularly influenza A. You're going to run high temperatures, muscle aches. Everybody's face is just red. I don't care what color your skin is. I mean, you are a bright red look with that. And having some diarrhea with that. There are some GI viruses going around now causing nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Particularly the Norwalk virus has been in the neighborhood for a couple of weeks, and it's still kind of percolating around out there. A time thing to watch out for historically is going to be going into Martin Luther King weekend in 2 weekends. That tends to be when we have a huge increase in the cases of illnesses. I mean, things will kind of quiet down in the next week, and then it's going to explode. And then the whole month, the rest of January and all February, we're going to be covered up with that. And again, if it's somebody that's very young or very old or has medical problems, don't ignore this stuff because it can be lethal.
Final question on the health tips. We'll take a break and get to your calls. But my wife and I know you never want to give the wrong advice to the wife, but we can talk back and forth. I got 3 young boys, as you know.
Absolutely.
And they love to go outside and play. Football, baseball, whatever, ride bikes. They want to be outside all the time. I understand bundling up, but at what point is it bad to, or should I not? Is there a certain degree that I should not let my kids go out and do that stuff? Because I'm like, as long as they got on a jacket and gloves, they'll be fine. You start getting in the 20s, my wife's like, you're an idiot. We're not doing that. Is there a rule of thumb to go by on stuff like that?
I would say particularly in children under age 6, probably if it gets down below 20, they need to be indoors. I'll tell you, I was out when it was 8 degrees yesterday morning walking my dogs, and my dogs were not very happy with me. But for younger people, you really need to look at that. Now, all of us, as long as you layer properly, you're fine. But no, Ryan, you're dead on. We have turned children into hothouse kids. They need to get outside. They need to roll around in the dirt. They need to be exposed. They need to have their bodies challenged to build up their immune systems. And listen, God made kids smart for a reason. If they get to be miserable,
they'll come in.
They'll come in.
Yeah.
It's not like my mom who locked the door and put out a sandwich and a glass of milk, and the glass of milk froze, and you had a milkshake. But they're not going to hurt most kids under age 6 until it gets down to teens.
All right. If you'd like to make Dr. Ricketts your primary care physician, call 822-0233. You can reach his office there. Also, markrickettsmd.com. Phone lines are open. Welcome back. The Doc on JOX portion of the Roundtable. Haney, Saber, Hunk in for you. The guys are getting back in town. You always pick the bumper music to segment 2. What's the genesis of this, Doc?
It's good. Well, I had to put something on Joe because I knew Joe's mom in high school, and I had this crush on her in high school. But no, we're celebrating the 36th anniversary of Saturday Night Fever, so I'm pulling selected Bee Gees tunes this month for a lot of folks out there that I love to dance with, and dedicate to my sister, my old dance partner up in Huntsville, and
apparently my mom.
Your mom was a good dancer, Joe. Let me tell you, she looked good out there dancing.
It's getting really awkward in here right now. Good thing Harry's recording it.
Let's keep it going.
All right. Well, we've had our chance to ask the Doc questions. Now it's your time. 741-9450, toll free 800-239-WJOX. And again, if you'd like to talk to the Doc and his staff about going and letting him be your primary care physician, that number is 822-0233. And then always they can submit, they can see these segments, all the things you do.
You bet.
Interactive with you. Harry does a great job with markrickettsmd.com as well.
You bet.
So I encourage people to go there any day, anytime. Let's start in Athens, Alabama with Dan. Dan, good afternoon. You're on with Dr. Mark Ricketts.
Thanks for taking my phone call. Doctor, first off, thank you for all your valuable information. A lot of people just take it for granted, their health, but you don't, and I do, and I'm the same as you, sir. I just so happy that you do this show and this segment, and it really is very informative information.
Well, being a North Alabama guy, listen, it's my pleasure, my friend, and listen, I like to tell everybody paranoia will keep you alive.
Yes, sir. Now, and speaking of that, I'm a very active 54-year-old. I work out early around 4:30 in the morning, and then I'll go swim at around 5:30, and very active all day long, put in a long day. I take supplements, and the supplements are like glucosamine, vitamin D, vitamin B12, C. And my question to you, sir, is this. I hear on the radio, especially on this radio station here in Athens, they have some kind of a product that's for your circulation. it's not it's more like a supplement for your circulation.
Okay.
Is there something valid with that, or is that just a bunch of hooey?
I'll go with the latter. Yeah, the latter's probably going to be right. Listen, the best thing for your circulation is what you're doing, which is working out, watching your cholesterol, and taking good care of yourself.
There you go. That's why I called. Thank you, sir. You have a good day.
Have a blessed day.
All right, staying on the same topic, Lewis is in Birmingham. He wants to talk about multivitamins. Welcome in, Lewis.
Yeah, hey, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I was just wondering all the latest studies they've come out with and everything about they're saying multivitamins aren't really useful or have no purpose, and I just wanted to get your opinion on it because I take one every day, and I can tell when I don't take one.
Sure.
Because I do a lot of physical activity and work outside and everything. I don't know if it's the B12 in them but...
Well, let me tell you
when I don't take them.
Absolutely. Let me tell you my philosophy about over-the-counter vitamins. From a purely scientific standpoint, if you're eating a correct 3-balanced meal, all your food groups the way you're supposed to in a day, you're getting all the essential vitamins and nutrients that you need. And all you're going to do by taking more vitamins is produce very expensive urine because your body's going to throw that off. Now, that being said, most of us don't eat 3 regular meals a day, and we don't get all the proper balance of nutrients and all those sorts of things. The worst a multivitamin is going to do is spend some money with you. If your body doesn't need it, it's going to get rid of it. You know, it's crazy when the AIDS epidemic started to break out, and we did not know what was causing it. A lot of folks were trying to use these high-potency vitamins to try to treat themselves with it and producing very expensive urine. But these, it really did help some because these guys were getting so malnourished that it did help replenish some of the things they were missing. So my thing to you is if you're a man or a woman, Centrum vitamins, Centrum Silver are your best way to go. It's got all the essential nutrients and chemicals that you need for a day. The worst it's going to do to you is nothing except spend a little money. My advice is if it makes you feel better, keep taking it. And if you're not and you don't notice anything, then save your money and use it for something else.
All right, back to the phones we go into Tuscaloosa. Mark, welcome. You're on with Dr. Mark Ricketts.
Yeah, I just started jogging. I'm above 50, and I heard that if you jog or walk in cold weather, you actually burn more calories than you were if you did it in hot weather. Is that true?
Well, it is true over a distance. Now, the reason why you're burning more calories is that you're having to burn more calories basically to maintain body temperature and regulation. You're going to get a slight increase. It's not going to be huge. I mean, let me tell you something. You'll throw off a lot of calories when you're jogging and running even in hot weather because your body's trying to cool itself. It does help a little bit more, and the biggest thing is don't quit doing what you're doing. Keep it up. I'm a big proponent of the Jeff Galloway system of running 2 to 3 minutes and walking a minute. It's a lot what Jim Fix talked about on people starting to jog. But the biggest thing is you just got to keep it up. If you'll keep it up, you're going to get the benefits of what you're trying to do.
And we were talking in one of the breaks, because you and the guys on the Roundtable are preparing to do the Mercedes Marathon together, or you're doing it and they're all pitching in.
Yes, we're going to team this thing
That's
up.
right. But we were, you're running 20 of the miles, and but no, all kidding aside, but we're talking about having to train.
Yes.
And when the decision was made you were going to do it, even for that 5K portion, a small portion of
Yes.
that. And there's apps out there that talk about that system just like you're doing to get, and that's what I've been doing. I know Joe said he's been doing recently too,
Sure.
is almost interval training to get your body to a point. I think where also mentally you don't even
Yes.
realize you're running because
Absolutely.
you've evolved into that, right?
Absolutely. The Couch to 5K apps are outstanding, and there are a bunch of them out there, a lot for free, at your iTunes or your Android store, that gives you a course to let you get there. I know a lot of the YMCAs and the rec centers are doing Couch to 5Ks. I know the guys at Fleet Feet and Track Shack are both doing that sort of thing right now. But you're right, it's conquering that mental part. And everybody gets thrown off because they're trying to, think about running 3 miles, which is 5K. Don't do that.
Right.
Most people haven't ran a mile since they were in high school.
And they had to do it.
Had to do
It's
it
not because they
then.
wanted to, right?
So you start off running 3 or 4 laps and take a break for about a minute and then jog 3 or 4 more laps. And then eventually, you're going to build that up to 8 and 16, and then you're going to build up your mileage like that. But it takes time. But it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get yourself from the 0 to 5K thing. Now, Jim and Ryan, I know they're not listening, but if you podcast this, we're going to be on a crash course for the next 5 weeks. We got a lot to do in the next couple of weeks.
And we're talking about documenting it video-wise so all the listeners can see this too. I think
Yeah,
I think it'd be a great lesson to see how to show where when you start at nothing where you can get in 5 weeks for doing
absolutely, and it will be the coldest day of the year that everybody runs on. Is always that day. So plus you want to look good when you're out there. You don't be looking out there like you're about to die and you got some kid chasing you with a pair of paddles getting ready to shock you.
Right.
It's got to be okay.
All right, a few more calls for Dr. Ricketts here on the Doc on JOX. Kenny, welcome in. You're on with Dr. Mark Ricketts.
Hey, Doc, thanks for taking my call.
Hey man, listen, thank you for calling.
Yeah. My question for you is, I've had this condition pretty much all my life. I'm a 50-year-old male, and my ankles, when I walk,
Yes.
they pop.
Yes.
They pop and they crack, kind of rather loudly at some times.
Yes.
Do you have any idea? And it's it's almost embarrassing at some points,
I tell you what, listen, my dad was in his 50s and I was a teenager. That was the best thing I had because that man, I could hear his ankles crack from half a mile away. It's a common incident that happens with a lot of us. Our cartilage tends to wear out in the ankle joint area, and that clicking and popping is where you're not producing enough joint fluid in the ankle area. Now, we were talking about that, people getting cold feet or having cold feet when they're out like this and having circulatory problems. That's sort of what you're having here. You're getting a destruction of cartilage and stuff. There is a great product that I really fully endorse from the Doc on JOX. The only thing I've ever endorsed is the Nike Power Band. But this drug is called Voltaren Gel. You can get it from your physician. I'm a firm believer in it. But it's a topical anti-inflammatory, and you can rub that on your ankles. You can rub it on your feet. You're not going to get the stomach upset by taking an oral agent to do that, and it will actually help with the inflammation and the cracking and the popping. If you're a little overweight, you need to drop the weight because that will certainly minimize that. You need to hydrate better, too, because the lack of hydration always makes that worse. I could always hear him more in the winter months out on Hobbs Island Road and Cap Atkins Road out toward New Hope, Alabama. Yep. I could hear that man from a half mile away with those ankles clicking. So, so I knew I better get my act together. But if you'll do that and talk to your doctor about using Voltaren Gel, you'll do great.
All right.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head because I'm a little bit overweight and probably do need to hydrate better.
This is a good time of the year to be doing all that, man. It's an excellent time of the year.
A good number of us in the studio have lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it goes, too, a lot of times, because I was a victim of this at first. When you're overweight, and it's what you're saying with running, you start thinking, I want to do it all now. And it's so much harder. That exercise is so much harder. It's almost better if you're wanting to lose weight to get a little bit of that weight off and then do something that's more manageable because I tore a calf back in June or in May.
Dude,
and I'm not having near the issues I was having since I've dropped, 45 pounds.
Yeah, look at the three of us. We're close to managing it up. We're on close to 200 pounds between the three of us.
But I mean that's a thing you see often, right? And it gets discouraging for people because they try to do too much too quick with the losing weight and combining that with the exercise.
Absolutely, you got to do a balance between the cardiovascular and the anaerobic muscle building. Most people's muscles have not used them in so long. You've got to stretch them. You got to build them, and then you got to push that big muscle in your chest called your heart. You got to do a combination and rotation of those three. I tell you, a good way, I think, for most people that haven't been out doing a lot is sign up for a local beginner's yoga class. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, you think, you're going to be some kind of yogi or something, but that stuff will get your heart rate up. It gets your core energy levels built up. It will burn calories like crazy. It'll help you improve your flexibility. And it'll also help your mental capacities on this thing, too. And you're going to feel successful doing it, and you're going to see the difference in the mirror over the first couple of weeks you do it.
All right, one final call for Dr. Ricketts this week. Chris is in Birmingham. Chris, welcome into the Doc on JOX.
Hi, Doc. Thanks for taking my call.
Well, thank you for calling.
When I sleep at night, I may get an hour to 2 hours sleep. I have to sleep on my sides because I've got a bad back.
Yes.
I've always used to put a pillow between my legs. But the pain from my shoulders to my middle fingers wakes me up every night. Like my arms are numb and my hands are numb.
Yes. Well, let me explain to you what's going on there and what you can do. A lot of that comes from the way you position your neck when you're laying down. And a lot of arm issues and issues of that nature come from where your neck is bent when you're sleeping on your sides, which most of us after age 30 are sleeping on our sides. Very few sleep on none of them sleeps on their stomach that I know of, and very few sleep on their back. But you bend your neck, and it puts pressure on those nerves, which will actually make them go numb. And you also can sometimes have some injuries from when you were younger and didn't even know it. A Tempur-Pedic pillow, or the folks at the sleep store have those special pillows that will provide you extensive, great support of your neck and are also extremely comfortable. And I guarantee if you'll do that, You'll stop the numbness in the arms. If it doesn't stop doing that, go see a doctor and get that neck checked out.
Yeah, I was waking up, Doc, a couple of years ago. I mean, constant headaches and catches in my neck.
Yeah.
I bought one of those, or got one of those 2 years ago for Christmas.
Yes.
You can get them at Target, Walmart. You can get them anywhere. I think they've got them. And I have not had an issue since. And I travel with it everywhere now, too, as well.
You never think about how you move your neck when you're asleep. Of course, obviously, we're all unconscious then.
Right.
But, it does cause a lot of problems for folks. Headaches, arm numbness, hand numbness, and those sorts of things. So it's one of those things you can do from a sleep hygiene standpoint that's really good for you.
All right. As always, to make the doc your primary care physician, 822-0233. Also, information, podcast, all sorts of things available at markrickettsmd.com.